Boatworks today is sponsored by Total Boat and Alexial Yacht Coatings, as well as supported by the generosity from the beautiful folks over on Patreon. Thank you so much. So welcome back to the shop, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic weekend. My name is Andy with Boatworks today, and this week I want to cover some things that had I known back in the day when I first started working or tinkering around with boats, some things that had I known back then when I was first getting started, it would have saved a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of aggravation and frustration, and, well, probably a few ass chewings from my boss as well. So specifically, when I was doing this, I want to focus on one particular thing, because if I wanted to go all over the board, this would be like a 2-hour video. But, so for this week, I'm just going to focus on one thing, and that is the learning curve that I had when I was first learning to work with epoxy. Now, just to set the stage, I think it was 24 years ago, I took my first job working at a marina, and I don't know, there really was no reason why, other than I knew that I wanted to work with boats. I knew nothing, I mean absolutely nothing, I had less than nothing about anything to do with boats, but I wanted to get into it. So I found one of the local marinas around Bayfield, and the one that I focused on specifically was one that had the highest percentage of sailboats to power boats, because I'm generally more of a sail guy than a power guy. And so I went in, interviewed, and they said, well, what do you know? I said, nothing. So long story short, they ended up giving me a job there. And the first thing that they had me doing, just to give you an idea of how little I knew, the very first thing they had me doing was separating water from fuel. Basically, you had a tank full of dirty fuel, and you kind of bled it off until the water came out, and when you started to see fuel, turned it off. So that, and then running the little polishing machines, whatever. But point being, that was the only thing that I did for probably the first month. I think that sounds about right, about the first month. Now, at that time then, our gel coat guy, we were pretty kind of a skeleton crew. We had like three or four mechanics, an electrical guy, and then a gel coat guy, and then the grunt, the guy with a strong back and a weak mind, which was me. So after about a month into it, our gel coat / fiberglass guy, he just quit. His name was Peanut, I think, or at least that's what we always just called him Peanut. Maybe he quit because of the harassment, I don't know. But that's just kind of how the crew was. Everybody kind of gave each other shit, and it was fun. It was a fun crew to be working with. So he quit, he left. Walked off, left. He didn't give 2-week notice, didn't offer any to do any training on me or anybody else. He just left. So the boss comes up to me and says, well, looks like you're going to be the new gel coat guy. And I thought, awesome, that sounds kind of fancy. Does that come with a raise? And he said, nope. All right, well, maybe next time, right? So anyways, off I went. They had a bunch of projects lined up for the summer, and well, you jumped in with both feet. It's kind of a sink or swim kind of a deal. Now, again, did I mention I didn't have anybody to train me in, and I knew absolutely nothing about this. So I was sitting there going out to the project, literally reading the instructions on every single can. And while that tells you the how to do things, mix this with this at this ratio and blah, 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 blah. It tells you the how, but there was no real understanding of the why things are done the way that they're done. So going out, I remember this specifically, going out on the first job, it was a small fiberglass job, right? And I think it was below the water line. And so they sent me out, they said, we're closing up this old through hole or through hull, whatever. And so I went out there, and Peanut had already had the area prepped. All I had to do was just lay up the glass, do the fairing, and then do the bottom paint. Pretty straightforward, or at least so I thought. So I went through and I did the fiberglass work. That turned out okay. I'm not exactly sure I don't remember how I did it, so I can't say for sure that I actually did it correctly. The boat hasn't sunk as far as I know. But where I got stung was when I was mixing up the fairing. So at that time, they carried West System and that line. This is pre-Total Boat or any of that stuff. So using the West System, and for their fairing additive, it's their 410 filler. So I'm thinking, all right, I didn't need that much but I wanted to make sure this was done absolutely spot on. So I'm reading the instructions. It says it's mixed 2 to 1. One little detail that I overlooked was that it's 2 to 1 by volume and not by weight. That was a big one. So I went through and I thought, all right, I'm going to be extra fancy on this. So I actually went through and I measured it out by weight. Well, it doesn't work that way. So for example, when you're measuring by volume, it is, I think West System was like a 5 to 1, is their 205 hardener. So it was mixed 5 to 1. That's fine by volume. But going on by weight, it actually worked out to be, well, less than that. It was like, I don't have the exact measurement here, but it was like for 100 grams of resin, you would use 18 grams instead of 20 for the hardener. So it's not a true 5 to 1 when you're going by weight, but it is when you're going by volume. So the short story is that, so I mixed all this up, slathered it on, smoothed it all out, spent a lot of time, way more time than I should have, trying to get this thing smooth. Trying to, just whatever. I wanted to impress the boss, right? And I came back the following day, it didn't set up. It didn't even come close to setting up. So I'm like, well, what the hell? Long and short of it, figured out, well, okay, that's right. It's got to be done by volume. So tip number one, first thing that I wish I had known is that when you're mixing your epoxies, whether it's a 2, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 5 to 1, whatever it may happen to be, mix your epoxies based on volume and not by weight, because you will get screwed. I mean, epoxy is not like polyester where, you just got to kind of be in the ballpark and it'll work. No. If there's like a 5%, up or down, it'll still work. But if you're outside of that range, it's not going to set up, and you're going to have to peel all that crap right back off, clean it, re-prep it, do the whole thing all over again. So don't be like me. Mix your epoxy by volume and not by weight. So the second thing that I wish I had a better understanding of was knowing how much material to mix up for a particular task that I was doing. And honestly, a lot of that comes down to a little bit of trial and error and kind of doing it a few times and getting that experience under your belt. But there is one key thing that really makes a huge difference. I mean, I toasted a lot of cups this way. So let's just say, for example, you're working on an area, you're getting ready to wet out some glass, and you figure, well, all right, it's going to take, let's just say about roughly 8 ounces of resin or epoxy. So you mix up your 8 ounces. Well, it's a small area, so you're applying it, the epoxy by brush. Well, when you're applying it by brush, you're actually taking very little material at a time out of the cup. And what ends up happening is you're holding the cup, right? Your hand's warm, and you're pulling the material out slowly. So you've got 8 ounces of material sitting in the bottom of that cup. All of a sudden, your hand starts to get pretty hot. And by that time, the resin's cooked. So, it's mixing up either too much or too little material for what it is that you're doing. Now, kind of the guideline that I always followed was, all right, the 5-minute rule. So mix up however much material it may happen to be. If it's 3 ounces, 4 ounces, 30 ounces, 60 ounces, it doesn't matter. Mix up the material so that when you're applying it, you're going to be able to empty that entire cup within 5 minutes. So the 5-minute rule. So where that kind of comes into play is if you're going to be applying your material by brush, so you're taking a little bit out at a time, mix up small batches. I didn't do that at first. If you're going to be mixing up batches where you're working on a large area and you're literally just going to be pouring it out, mix up as big a batch as you can manage. Because the whole point of this is you want to get that resin out of the cup. If it's sitting in the cup, it's gonna go off on you, and you're gonna end up either melting the cup, dripping resin all over the deck or the boat, or wherever you may happen to be. It just makes a hell of a mess. So the whole point, you want to get it out of the cup and spread out in a thin layer as quickly as you can. And once you do that, now you've taken your working time from 5 minutes, probably depending on what kind of hardener you're using, you brought it up to 20, 30, 40 minutes, depending on temperature and like I said, your hardener. So 5-minute rule when you're mixing up your resin. If you're going to be pouring it out on a large area, mix up large batches. If you're going to be working out of a little cup, mix up very small batches. It's better to have multiple small batches that you actually get applied than fewer larger batches that you end up cooking half of the buckets. 5-minute rule. So now the third thing that I wish I had known was not to use chop strand matting or CSM with epoxy, at least the CSM that is commonly found here in the US. Reason being, there's two different types of chop strand matting. I think when you get more over towards other countries like Europe, their chop strand matting is manufactured a little bit differently than ours. So here in the US, the chop strand matting is held together with what's called a styrene-based binder. So that when you're trying to wet that material out with a resin that contains styrene, like polyester resin, that binder breaks down and the glass becomes very malleable. I mean, you can do some pretty crazy bends with it. Now, when you're trying to wet that same glass out with epoxy doesn't contain styrene, so that binder doesn't ever break down. So what ends up happening is that I'm hearing things. So while you can technically encase the glass with resin, I mean, and it'll look like kind of a cloudy snot pile, but you can do it, the glass will not become malleable. It won't conform to shapes. And where I got bit on this was I was trying to wrap some chop strand around a radius on a particular repair that I was doing at the time, and the edge of the glass wouldn't lay down. It would just, I would wet it out, fold it over the radius, and the edge would lift up. Every time. It didn't matter how much I screwed around with it, it did not want to stay put. Now, I'm not saying that all chop strand matting is like this. I said that's primarily the stuff that's available here in the US. Now, the other type of chop strand matting that is manufactured doesn't use a styrene binder, but it uses a powder binder. That particular chop strand is epoxy compatible. It's just, I can't say for sure that there isn't anyone in the US that sells the chop strand with the powder binder, because I'm sure there is, but it's not commonly found. Most marinas, aren't going to be stocking this. It's going to be your specialty fabric suppliers that may have the chop strand with the powder binder, but for the most part, presume that your glass is going to be the styrene-based binder, and it's just not going to work with your epoxy, at least not work very well. Now, I suppose if you're just doing a small patch on a flat area, you might be able to get away with it, but if you've got to make it conform to any kind of shape or radius, good luck. It took me a while to figure that one out. All right, so the fourth and fifth things that I wish I had had a better understanding of, or that I had known at the time, they're somewhat related, and it directly ties into the different types of epoxy. Now, I'm not talking about the different brands. I'm actually talking about the different types of epoxies. By that meaning some of yours, the epoxies that are like 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1. Each of those types of epoxies kind of have some unique characteristics about them. So for example, like the higher up in the ratios that you go, so when you start looking at your 5-to-1s, the viscosity for those epoxies are typically going to be a little thicker. And where that comes into play is when you're trying to use that thicker epoxy for wetting out your fiberglass. It takes a lot more time and a lot more effort to work the epoxy into your fiberglass. Whereas if you look at your lower ratio epoxies, like your 2-to-1, they tend to be a little bit thinner. Now there is some trade-off there between the 2-to-1 and the 5-to-1, but it's pretty minimal. So your 5-to-1s, they're going to be a stiffer composite, when it's cured, whereas your 2-to-1s, they're going to tend to be a little bit more flexible. Now, when I say a little bit more flexible, I mean by hand, you're probably not ever going to be able to notice a difference. But in a lab, when you're testing it, there is a little bit more flex with your 2-to-1 versus your 5-to-1. And with your 2-to-1 being a thinner viscosity, it makes it a lot easier for wetting out your glass. You're able to work the material in with a lot less effort and a lot less time, which is why I pretty much exclusively use the 2-to-1 epoxies whenever I'm doing any kind of a glass layup. So now the other part, the number 5 that's kind of connected to that, and it directly comes into time saving, is that, you know, we've all heard of you know, amine blush, you know, epoxies that are prone to blush. And if you're not familiar with what that is, essentially it's a byproduct of the curing process where there's some stuff, you know, that floats up to the surface, kind of the surface of the epoxy, clouds things over, and unless that amine blush is removed, anything that you try to apply over top of that, it's just not going to bond, or it may not set up. So taking care of it is an easy process, but it's still an extra step that needs to be done. So to get rid of it, all you do is you go over it, wash it with like a Scotch-Brite pad in some warm water. It doesn't have to be soapy water, just warm water. Scrub it down, wipe it off clean. Now you've removed the blush, but it's an extra step. On a small area, probably not such a big deal. If you've got to go through and do that as prep for several areas or even a large area, it becomes time consuming. You know, because not only the washing process and then the drying process, that kind of eats up time. Now, your higher, like I think I'd mentioned this, your higher ratio epoxies have more of a tendency to blush than your lower ratio ones. So for example, like the Total Boats, they're 2-to-1 epoxy, the one that I primarily use exclusively. It says right on there, it's blush free. That's great. It's just another step that you don't need to do. Again, it's just comes down to time saving. And you know, none of these one things on their own, you know, are going to make like a night and day difference in your project, or at least on a day-to-day basis. But over the course of a project, you know, that's spanning weeks or sometimes even several months, all that little bit of time adds up. So it makes a difference of maybe being able to hit your launch date early in the spring versus having your launch date rescheduled for closer to early summer. So that's all I've got for this week. Hopefully you found some of this information helpful for some of your upcoming projects. And if you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Thank you in advance. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, leave those down below. I will do my best to follow up with you. And as always, I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. Have a great week. Hopefully we don't get pounded with another 2 to 3 feet of snow. And hopefully I'll see you next weekend. Oh yeah. Thanks for watching.
This has been a Boatworks Today production.